Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to break down the beginning of spring training for the Orioles, talk about which players we're most looking forward to seeing in camp, as well as give our annual spring training predictions. But before we get into all of that, as we like to do at the top of every episode, we want to welcome some new members to our Patreon community. And for that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, it looks like we got just one more. I mean, it's not a complaint because we've had quite a run here lately with our new patrons. But Chris Slade signed up at the single A level, so appreciate you very much. Click the link on the bottom of the screen to get in on the action. And the final Top 50 update comes out tomorrow morning. All three of us on the same bonus podcast to go over the top 5 all together. Should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a reminder, if you sign up to become a patron now, you will not only have access to that top 5 episode, but to every episode in our top 50 countdown up to this point, as well as weekly updates during the regular season from Bob, Nick, and myself, and monthly updates to the top 50 prospects list. So be sure to check out patreon.com for all of that. You can sign up to $3, $5, or $10 levels. And now we'll get into spring training. The Orioles will play their first game on Friday. We've already had a lot of news out of camp so far. Some of it not good concerning injuries. Other stuff, though, it seems like the vibes are back a little bit. We're optimistic that the Orioles are going to be better than they were in 2025. And that kind of plays into what we're going to talk about tonight, which is the players that we're most looking forward to seeing in camp. And last week, we broke down players who are in camp as non-roster invitees. We'll be talking about at least one of them tonight. But we're also going to cover some players that are 40-man roster or 26-man roster going into the 2026 season. And I'm going to start with Nick in this discussion because he's got one of the guys that came on late in 2025, at least in the majors, and that we're hoping for big things from in 26.
Yeah, let's start with my guy. It is the bat I'm definitely going to be paying a close attention to it's Dylan Beavers. I'm pretty excited to see what he does in first full year in the big leagues, starting in spring training. If he can build on what he did last year, it's going to be massive for this lineup, I think. And I don't know if you guys actually saw John Mioli had a quick little article on Baseball America. I think it was the other day. Just a quick, not too detailed or anything, just a short piece on Beavers to note that I think he's been emphasizing hitting lefties this offseason and increasing his exit velos, impacting the ball a little bit more, which is good to see. I mean, more production versus lefties would be awesome, of course, but even if he's just in versus righties, he's going to get a lot of playing time, obviously. But for me, we already know he has strong swing decisions. He has strong walk rates. He hits fastballs very well. And I believe if you look at last year's whiff rates against fastballs, I think only Adley and Ryan O'Hearn had lower whiff rates against fastballs when Ryan O'Hearn was in with the Orioles. Had lower whiff rates on fastballs than Beavers did, and that's a smaller sample size, of course, but still impressive. It was 15-16%, and you saw pitchers adjust to that in September. He saw an uptick in breaking balls and off-speed pitches. And against those two offerings, he hit 067 and 083, respectively. So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to. The league very quickly learned you aren't going to beat him with fastballs, so they moved away from them, and Beavers really struggled. And so can he punch back, though? That's what this game is about. Constantly adjusting to you. Can you adjust back? I'm anxious to see what he can do at the plate against those particular two types of pitches this spring. And of course, the defense, does he look more comfortable out there in right field? Do you feel confident in sending him out there most nights in right field? And yeah, if there's more impact, if there's better production against lefties, that's great. But the first thing that I think I'm going to be paying attention to is that production against breaking pitches and off-speed pitches.
Yeah, Dylan Beavers is a good shout because obviously, and for good reason, everybody's excited for Samuel Basayo's rookie year. Get him going on that Rookie of the Year hunt. Got the extension, showed off flashes of the power, of the skills that we've been talking about for quite a while in the minor leagues. It's exciting that He doesn't have as much pressure. He's backup catcher, DH, first base, can be rested if needed. But Dylan Beavers came out of the gates last year, not even just talking about the majors, but made clear adjustments and was just like a completely leveled up player in 2025 all season long until the struggles late in the season. And you saw the results of that with some of the top 100 lists that came out, especially Baseball America. Ben Badler had him like 21st best prospect in baseball. I think how he builds on 2025 could go a long way towards making up for potential losses on the team. There are rumors going around. Tony Pente tweeted out that Jordan Westburg's oblique might be worse than
Who?
initially feared.
Never heard of him.
No, I've never heard of him either. It's probably wrong anyway. But, just having Beavers come out and not even build on what he did, but if he can just sustain the improvements that he made last year, I think that's going to be huge. And he did have a great spring training last year, and that kind of, we didn't make much of it at the time because spring training numbers are what they are. Not very important as far as just the actual stats in the short sample size, but it turned out to be the start of a great season. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes out of the gates this year.
If Beavers can just sustain what he did from the jump of last season going down to AAA, and I know that's going to be really hard to do, the low strikeout rate, the high walk rate, all of that doesn't necessarily translate from AAA to the majors. But there were a lot of things that we saw from Beavers last year that if he can just bring them over this season are going to help this team a lot. One of them is the strikeout to walk rates. And the other thing, too, is that if you look at his platoon splits, he does not drive the ball as well against lefties. He doesn't hit for as much power, but he's not overmatched by them. And if the Orioles could find themselves in a spot where by June 1st they realize that Dylan Beavers doesn't need to sit the bench every time there's a lefty on the mound, or he doesn't need to be pulled from the game because there's a left-handed reliever coming in, that's going to help them out a lot because his platoon partner is Tyler O'Neill, who, as we know, has a very long and checkered injury history. And if you're the Orioles, one of your goals for this year is to figure out how long can you keep Tyler O'Neill on the field and what can you get from him while he's out there, because we know this is a guy you can't count on for probably 120 games, let alone 140. So if Dylan Beavers can get to the point where you feel comfortable running him out in right field most nights, I think that's a big win, even if we don't necessarily see the power come around, even if the defense is kind of league average. Just not having to be in that platoon spot, knowing that you've got a steady bat that can go out in right field night in and night out, is going to help this team a lot.
Yeah. And I'll say a little teaser for when we do the top 5 prospects final episode over on Patreon. Obviously, Dylan Beavers is going to be in the top 5. That's not a big spoiler. But I will say, I was going to say during that episode, I would put money right now that Dylan Beavers, and maybe this is a little bit too optimistic, I think Dylan Beavers has a top 3 AL Rookie of the Year finish type season. I think he's completely capable of that. The voting of that is going to get a little weird because you've got Trey Savage, who already has the leg up from his postseason experience, and you've got the bigger NPB guys coming over that are going to have bigger name recognition. So if Murakami hits some nukes, like a lot of people think he will, that's obviously going to stay in the minds of voters, I think, a little bit more because most of the voters just vote based on RBI totals at this point. But yeah, I think he's pretty much poised for that kind of season and going to surprise a lot of people when he does that, considering, I mean, just you look at the report coming out of the draft. This is a guy who was like, yeah, my hit tool needs to be completely overhauled. And the Orioles did it. And here now we're talking about legitimately Dylan Beavers could contend for the AL Rookie of the Year in 2026, which is just awesome to see.
But I thought Keith Law said in a chat that the Orioles haven't been able to develop any hitters since Michael Elias took over. One of the worst statements in a very long career of terrible statements for Keith Law. But the bat notwithstanding, I'm actually curious to see the defense in the corners and if he's been able to continue to improve there as well. I think it's going to be hard to get a look or get a feel for that on our end as watching half of the spring training games, and he'll probably be playing in half of those. But as far as just the confidence that the team themselves have when Dylan Beavers manning the outfield full time, I think that would carry some weight too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go over to Bob now, who has, I think, 2 picks for this round.
Well, I was just doing one hitter and one pitcher, but I'll start with the hitter since that's where we're at. I'm going to say Aaron Estrada because love me some Aaron Estrada. I don't know if anyone saw the Oopsie Top 100 Prospects list that came out. I think Estrada was like number 33 overall. I love it. Gotta love that. And I just want to be able to get some data on Aaron Estrada. We heard that he hit the ball as hard as 112 miles an hour, that he was hitting the ball harder than you would probably expect a guy of his age and his frame and his just home run totals in his minor league career is able to do so and consistently. But again, this kid just turned 21 last month. And if he was already hitting that at his age 20 season, I'd like to see what did he do in the offseason? Did he hit their weight room even more? Was he able to hit the ball even harder this year at 21 years old? Are we going to see a not quite Samuel Basayo, he's a unicorn, but that progression year to year? And I just thought the way that Kobe Perez talked about him every chance he got last year, Matt Blood, Anthony Villa, everyone's super high on him. Feel like the league is going to catch up on him, but I just want to see that data, and maybe he's a guy that can push for the September 2026 promotion and get him set up for 2027 Rookie of the Year run. But in order to start that, I want to see him. He was invited, non-roster invite to spring training. I want to see some good innings, especially early on in the spring training and away games, and see what he can do out there. I especially want to take particular attention to his defense, see if that's improved, because he's going to need to be able to play a position, but seems like the bat is going to play.
Yeah, and we probably don't see much of Estrada, I imagine. But yeah, it's like, what does the bat speed look like? How much bigger is he? What does the batted ball data look like this year? Because like you said, he was only 20 last year, so he's not done developing physically. So how is that going to impact what he does at the plate in spring? And we'll get a taste of that, at least, since we may not get to watch every single game, but we at least will get the StatCast data on every single game, which is nice. So you can at least track that. Yeah, it's just going to be looking at that and just getting like a marker, I think, for the 2026 season. He's probably still going to start back in AA, but I don't imagine he's going to be there for very long. At least he shouldn't be, especially if he picks up from where he left off last year. But yeah, same thing. A lot of eyes on the defense as well. Where did the Orioles decide to play him? I don't know if we're going to be able to learn too much from where he plays. I'm sure the more important thing is just going to be getting at bats in spring when they can get him at bats. But I know I've mentioned this before. It's like watching him play left field a couple of times. It wasn't that great, But honestly, I didn't care that much what his defense looked like last year because he was 20 years old. And I think the more important thing was the development of the bat, and he checked off a lot of boxes with the bat. So this year, yeah, we can pay more attention to the defense, see what it looks like, see where the Orioles deploy him more often. And yeah, the other thing too, and you're not going to be able to glean a lot from this in his limited springtime, but can he also continue to keep the ball off the ground? Because that was a big thing as well. And it's gotten better and better. If you look at like each his last 3 stops over the last year plus, it's continued to trend better and better. More fly balls, more power, and it's resulted in more home runs. So when he gets back to AA to begin the year and moves through AAA, what do those numbers look like? Because, I mean, if he keeps trending like he's trending, then, yeah, all of this national hype that's been going around, Aaron Estrada is like one of the darling prospects in all of baseball this offseason. It feels like it's going to become quite the show this year for sure.
I feel like Estrada's debut is going to be one of those things that generates a lot of buzz on social media and our Discord because he'll hit a line drive single for 110 miles an hour off the bat. And some people are going to realize, oh, Aaron Estrada actually hits the ball really hard. Or you're just so excited to see actual StatCast data that you're going to follow along with that. But I agree with Nick. I think it's going to be a very limited sample size that we see Estrada this spring. But he still has the opportunity to make an impression. Go out there, put up good at bats, hold your own in the field, whatever position that they put him in. I'm thinking and hoping it's going to be a lot of second base this spring because ultimately that's where I think he's going to end up. but go out, look good in the field, hit the ball hard, and he is probably going to go back to Double A. But if you can make the impression with a little bit of time that you get in camp, I think it's going to do wonders for him this year. And I definitely don't think a call-up late this season in the Major Leagues is out of the realm of possibility when you consider that he is going to be Rule 5 eligible at the end of the year. So, maybe if the Orioles feel like they need that extra bat off the bench down the stretch, they'll go ahead and bring up Estrada knowing that they're going to have to make that move in a couple of months anyways.
Yeah, it's a shame that he's not a year ahead in his development, because I feel like with the early injuries to Westberg and Holiday, would be a perfect opportunity for him to grab an opportunity. But clearly, I mean, that's not, unless he's developed insanely over the last few months, I don't think that's going to happen. And even if he has, I think they'd want to get him on top 100 list before having him make his debut. But my other player that I put my pitcher was Anthony Nunez, just because with the trade of Cade Stroud, which is looking better and better, getting Blaze Alexander in this organization. Hit a home run off Cade Povich today, apparently. Was getting high fives in the dugout. I think Anthony Nunez, or at least someone like him, has a real opportunity to grab that last optionable spot in the bullpen to start the year. And I think the hype on Nunez is starting to grow quite a bit as well. Seems like he's got 3-4 plus pitches potentially, and I forget where I saw it, but something about the splitter, and just seems like the hype is starting to build up with him. Or that's what it was. A hot, bold prediction, hot take was that, and I can't remember who it was again. Sorry,
I got it pulled up.
Anthony Nunez will be the closer by the end of the season.
Our old friend Eli Ben Pratt contributes to Baseball America. Yeah, bold prediction: Anthony Nunez finishes the year as the Orioles closer. Good fastball, good sinker, insane all caps split change, dynamic sweeper, and a bridge cutter that he uses for strikes. Dude only started pitching a few years ago. Command sucks, but this is a crazy good arsenal.
Yeah, see, that gets my heart racing as we're about to get into some spring training games here soon, and also kind of leads credence to the potential conversion to starting pitcher at some point down the road, potentially. But if he locks down closer role, and you can have Ryan Helsley as the setup guy at some point late in the year, or even if it's just like he's trusted in high leverage season situations by the end of the season, that would be huge. That would be huge.
I pulled up his AAA thing here real quick, and the changeup, 58% whiff rate in AAA last year. Slider had a 45% chase rate and a 46% whiff rate. Righties have no answer for the slider. Lefties can't touch the changeup, down in AAA at least. Slider had a 117 stuff plus. So, yeah. Tyson Neighbors is going to get his shot. I know we're getting more and more people on board of the look at these dynamic relief-only type prospects. They'll get their shot, but 2026 is the year for Anthony Nunez to take control, I think. And get the band back together at some point, because Anthony Nunez, Kobe Mayo, and Enrique Bradfield Jr. were all teammates as like high school kids, or like travel ball teammates down in Florida. So another fun little storyline to follow there.
And they're all going to be on the 2026 World Series roster.
Let's hope so.
I'm really excited to see how Nunez looks this spring, and even if it's not right out of the gate, I do think there's a chance for him to crack the Major League roster early this year. And I made this point a few weeks ago, which is if you look at Nunez and Cameron Foster, I think both are going to get big league innings this year, and both were just added the 40-man this offseason. They were acquired over the trade deadline last year. Both finished the year at AAA, so there's some parallels there. I think that Foster, because he's a few years older than Nunez, might be the more immediate option, but Nunez, I think, has a better chance to get to the majors and stick because that pitch mix is so deep. And would I rule out him going into camp and dominating over, let's say, 7 to 10 innings and at least being on the bubble at the end? No, I wouldn't at all, because the Orioles bullpen is still in flux, at least until you get to the back end of it. And with Cade Stroud having been traded, there's seemingly a spot up for grabs now. Not to mention Colin Selby's injury. So there's some opportunities for Anthony Nunez to go in and make a big impression this spring. And even if it doesn't result in an opening day roster spot, I could see him getting the major leagues pretty quickly this year.
You know, you didn't mention, we didn't do the emergency podcast. We failed with the addition of Jackson Kowar. There was that addition, but there's going to be other waiver claims as well. I'm sure a couple more this spring training. There are probably going to be other Jackson Kowar, at least one more type trade the cash to jump the waiver wire line. But I don't think anybody you're going to be able to get has the ceiling that Anthony Nunez has. And like when you're talking about a potential, like a depth arm right now that may begin in AAA, like that's what excites me the most. Is his ceiling is kind of unmatched, I think, among the AAA relief arms that they have down there right now.
I'll go over to my pick now, and it's Kobe Mayo. And there's a lot of reasons to highlight Mayo in this spot. Some of it is that with the uncertainty of the health surrounding the infield, it's apparent now that Mayo is going to take on a much larger role because he could be spending a lot more time at third base than we expected. And as Andy Koska wrote in the Baltimore Banner last week, the Orioles have been working with Mayo defensively at third base, and that's going to be key because although that is his natural position and that was where he played primarily in the minor leagues, we have not seen him play there very much in the majors at all. So getting him reacquainted to third base is going to be key when you consider that in his career so far, he's played just 15 of his 89 MLB games at third base. So it's going to really be a big adjustment curve for him there. But the other thing, too, is with the bat. He, as was well documented, struggled over multiple call-ups in 2024 and 2025. He had a bad August last year. It looked like he was going to limp his way to a sluggish 2025 season in the major leagues, but then breaks out over the final month of the season. In 24 games between September and October, he hit .301 with a .941 OPS, 165 WRC plus, and 5 home runs to go along with 3 doubles. So 8 hits in that span from Mayo, 8 out of 22 were for extra bases. And that was really encouraging because we've seen from Mayo throughout his professional career up until he got to the majors, which is that ability to show that pull-side power and the kind of raw power that a lot of hitters show in batting practice being in games. And we know that even if the defense is below average at third base this year, if he can replicate what he did in September, that's going to add a lot to this lineup. Now, obviously there's a lot of question marks about can he repeat that? Is he going to be able to hit right-handed pitching in the majors? Because if you look at his career splits, he's actually been very good against lefties, but has really struggled in the opportunities he's had against right-handed pitching. Can he get better against right-handers? Is he going to be at least good enough at third base that most nights you feel comfortable running him out there at least for the first 8 innings of the game? It may not be the entire thing, especially now you brought in Blaze Alexander, who can play a pretty good third base, but you want Mayo to be able to go out there and handle third base comfortably while Westberg is out. You want to be able to get his bat in the lineup based on the improvements that he made last year. And I feel like if we can see his September carry over to spring in some meaningful way, it's going to do a lot to boost his confidence going into this year. And it's going to really help the Orioles out a lot to know, okay, we've got this player here that maybe based on career statistics, a lot of people are writing off or not counting on a lot from, but we feel like we've got maybe a 20-25 homer bat to add on to Pete Alonso and Taylor Ward's additions over the offseason.
I'm completely bought in on the adjustments in the bat, the glove at third base to be determined, but this is he's got some clear runway here, especially if the rumors are to be believed, potentially a season-long worth of runway at third base if he can, hold his own there and maybe be relieved defensively late in games by Blaze Alexander from time to time in close games. But yeah, the 165 WRC plus, almost 11% walk rate. Strikeout rate still a little high in that great September at 28.6%, but with the 247 ISO, it doesn't matter as much. And I think you saw not just the numbers, but you saw him laying off those breaking balls out of the zone, the low and away sliders. You saw the adjustments. You saw that the swing decisions were better. more comfortable. And I think it also just had a lot to do with just having the runway to get comfortable at the major league level, get everyday at bats, just get in there every day. And I'm 100% bought in on just what we've talked about Kirby Mayo for many years now. Big bat, a lot of power, huge bat speed, crushes the ball. Defensively, I think he can be good enough to just let the bat carry the way. I think that's a lot of the Orioles' motto in almost every position. The defense might not always be the most pretty, but if the offense plays up to the way it's capable of, it's not going to matter quite as much. So, yeah, I am very excited to see how Kirby Mayo looks at third base. And even if it's not beautiful, if it's not what you want at third base, I still think the bat is one you keep around. And like Elias has said, maybe you teach him right field. Maybe I believe in the bat enough. Keep him in Baltimore. Taylor Ward's a free agent after this year. Ryan Mountcastle is somehow still in this organization, but Mayo is the future. I think he's going to be a big part of the future of the Orioles.
I don't think I sent this to you guys. I was listening to a Mariners podcast, and they were talking about trade options, and they brought up Kobe Mayo, and they decided they didn't really want Kobe Mayo because he seems too entitled. And the best they could do is maybe they think about is it Felton Celestine for Kobe Mayo straight up. It's rough out there. Listening to some of the stuff when they talk about the Orioles. It's offensively coming up through the minors. You saw Mayo do exactly what you wanted to see him do. And we talked about this over and over and over again. The age to level and succeeding. And when he's put up, he's been 2 to 3 years younger than his competition at each level in the minors. And he's got WRC pluses of 118, 170, 130, 138. That's fantastic production. And speaking of Eli Ben Parat, bringing up that tweet, that article he did in Baseball America, we brought it up a couple of times on the show and dove into that. A quadrant by quadrant, pitch by pitch breakdown of Kobe Mayo AAA performance, and it was fantastic. And Eli had a lot of love and praise for Kobe Mayo's potential and how that could translate to the big leagues. That was the point of his article, is that this should translate, but he's got to do it. And he hasn't had that opportunity. He's got, barely 300 major league at-bats across 2 seasons, and a lot of those at-bats have been spread out. Like, wasn't it Kobe who, I think somebody reported he met with Kyle Stowers or something for dinner, like All-Star break or something like that, and Stowers was, like, talking with him about the up and down, the not getting your chance when you deserve it, and the whole mental state there and dealing with that, because I do think clearly how the Orioles handle some of these young guys, the young bats, bringing them up, down, and sitting them, and etc., I think that messes with a lot of these guys, and I think sometimes it does more harm than good. I know they believe in this, even though you're not playing, but you're up and you're on the trajectory machine, you're in the dugout, you're still learning, you're still developing and can grow, but that doesn't equate to like time on the field, which a lot of these guys struggle to get. So I think you take all that into account, and yes, you guys brought up the September numbers. We've brought them up a couple times. It is a small sample. It's 1 month, but it came after August was the first, we'll say, full month he got in the major leagues, and it was terrible. It was a 32 WRC plus month that he hit 136. You guys just ran off the September numbers, and we brought up the pitch by pitch breakdown. Yeah, he batted 0-0-0 against breaking balls in August, and then in September he hit 296. 53% whiff rate against breaking balls with a batting average of 0 in August. September, he hit 296. The whiff rate dropped more than 10%. And also off-speed pitches, his whiff rate dropped by 17% against off-speed pitches, and he hit 429. So, yeah, small sample. And pitchers didn't change the way they attacked him. They didn't need to because of how bad August was. Keep doing what you're doing, and he's not going to hit the ball, right? Well, he started hitting the ball. So, yeah, he just turned 24 a few weeks ago. He has 2 months of significant playing time in the major leagues. Like, he's earned the opportunity to prove whether or not September was a sign of things to come. And it's unfortunate that, this is how he gets his big runway, but his opportunity is there. And yeah, it's every at bat, every ground ball is going to be heavily scrutinized for Kobe Mayo this spring, but I'm excited to watch him rise up to this challenge.
Well, I'll add this one too, which is that with the kind of hitter that Kobe Mayo is, you have to learn to live the 25, 28% strikeout rate. That's probably where he's going to be a lot of years. But if he's walking 8 to 10% of the time and he's putting up the kind of power we've seen him show in the minor leagues, you live with that. That's just how it is. And you hope the strikeouts come down from what they've been to this point, but they're going to be a part of his game. But it feels like the offensive skill set should be good enough that it gets into the territory where you live with it because the other production just outweighs it.
I understand like the being skeptical. That's fully understandable, and I'm not 100% bought in. I want to see it too, but it's like completely burying him. I don't understand that at this point right now. Like if you're highly skeptical and you don't think it's going to work out, fair assessment. He hasn't shown it yet in the big leagues for a long period of time, but he hasn't gotten that chance, and I just don't see why you completely throw dirt over his entire grave right now when he's 24 years old and we haven't seen what he's done but for more than a month and a half, 2 months.
Also, I think a lot of other teams out there are going to be kicking themselves for not valuing him enough to trade for him, go out and trade for him before this offseason. I think the Orioles would have been willing, and I think there was a time this offseason when I thought it would probably be best for the Orioles and for Kobe Mayo to trade him for a top of the rotation arm, middle of the rotation arm, some kind of package for a pitcher. Other teams, I think, are going to be the ones that are missing out on that, and I think the Orioles will ultimately be pretty happy that didn't happen to transpire.
Absolutely. We'll go over now to our spring training predictions. And I promise that before we do the regular season predictions, we will break all of these down along with the off-season predictions, figure out what we got wrong, what we got right. But for tonight, we're just going to go right into predicting what's going to happen in camp. And I'm just going to start off with this big question here, which is, will we see a move this spring other than the Chris Bassett signing, which happened last week? Nick, I'll start with you here.
Ramon Arias seems like a pretty good option to bring back. Other than that, I don't know. Like, I think it's, like I said earlier, it's going to be a lot of waiver wire churn, maybe some more Jackson Kowar type trades. But after they signed Chris Bassett, I just don't think they go out and try to land a big arm now. That's more of a trade deadline acquisition at this point. I think, knock on wood, fingers crossed, whatever you need to do. So far, on the pitching side at least, health seems good. So hopefully we keep rolling with that. Bullpen additions, it's going to be the waiver wire guys. Maybe there's a free agent out there that the Orioles were interested in. That there were some conversations. They're still unsigned, and the Orioles can go back and say, "How about taking the minor league deal now, since you're still unsigned and the season's about to start?" Maybe that kind of addition, but I think like as far as big moves goes, I don't see it. Like, I don't see a need to go out and spend big capital or even cash resources on the bullpen. Maybe the only thing that I would say is like, have the Twins, what's the conversation about around Joe Ryan right now after the Pablo Lopez injury? Like, they completely blew their opportunity to kick off their, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, rebuild, retool. I don't know. But like Byron Buxton, Royce Lewis, Luke Keeschel, they're not exactly the pillars of health. Have conversations around Joe Ryan changed? Maybe. I don't think that's going to happen. That trade's going to happen right now in the next 2-3 weeks. But interested to know what's going on there. But yeah, as far as like major moves go, I think it's just going to be trying to find that next bullpen, trying to find the next Danny Coulomb. I'm not particularly interested in bringing Danny Coulomb back personally, but can they find the next Danny Coulomb among the waiver wire churn and maybe a small free agent acquisition over the next week or two?
The next Jackson Kowar. Yeah, they'll certainly be doing the waiver wire churn as always. Ramon Arias on a cheap major league deal makes a ton of sense. Just the familiarity. He's not signed. He's going to be playing in the WBC, so should be in shape and at least getting some competitive at-bats. So even if they want to wait a little while till he's done with that, just would make a ton of sense depending on how early spring goes and how Mayo, and even if Mayo looks good there, I think it wouldn't hurt to bring him in, and no harm, no foul. We'll see. Running it back for a lot of the guys from 2025. And I still think Mountcastle gets traded this offseason. I still think it's going to happen. Less likely now than it was, for sure. But Mountcastle for a left-handed reliever or something like that just makes too much sense to me not to happen at some point.
I agree. I think it's going to be minor moves if anything happens. And with Joe Ryan, with a pitcher that good, you have to constantly be engaged and talk to the Twins to figure out, okay, what's it going to take for you to agree to finally move on from him? And what's going to take for you to agree to our offer or at least meet us in the middle? Because he's a good enough pitcher that if you can go get him at the deadline, you have him for the next year and a half, you do it. I don't think it's going to happen in spring, but I think you need to stay engaged there. I do think they'll prioritize the bullpen and Ramon Arias. You know what you have there. It's a natural platoon partner with Blaze Alexander. It's not the worst move you can make at this point.
I don't think I like the fit, but would either of you entertain Isak Paredes or not in Camden Yards?
I think I saw something that said when he had 31 home runs, if he played all his games at Camden Yards, he would have had 9. So
Okay. No,
I don't think it's the best fit, but we also do play a lot of away games at Boston and New York. So I don't know. I think the price will probably be too high to make it worth it, but it's an interesting idea for sure. And maybe come the trade deadline, depending on what we need, what we have, maybe it becomes more of a possibility.
Yeah, if you could bring the price down, because I know it's been reported the Astros are looking for a left-handed hitter in return, and I would guess that means a big league ready left-handed hitter. I'm probably not real eager to make it that move, but you could certainly do a lot worse at third base, and you just hope that either he runs into enough pitches when he's on the road, or somehow he has one of those years where power spikes a little bit and he's a 20-25 home run bat at Camden Yards, which would be great, but it's not a move I'm desperate to make.
Yeah. Just wondering what y'all's thoughts were, because it does feel like the Astros are like getting more desperate to trade him, and I don't know.
If they want to take the last 2 years of Tyler O'Neill's contract for him, sure.
That would be something. That would be interesting.
Ryan Mountcastle for Isak Paredes. Let's do it. There we go.
Make it happen.
Done deal. Force trade. Push the force trade button.
All right, I'll go over the next prediction here, which is, will a non-roster invitee make the opening day roster? If so, who will it be? And Bob, I'll start with you.
Yes, I do think so. I have a surprise, and I guess it kind of goes in with a later question on here with any surprises when it comes to position players to make the team. I'm going to combine my answer and say Peyton Neals. Welcome to the opening day roster as a bench infielder.
I could see that. Luis Vasquez, Peyton Neals, both third base experience. So
Alvarez is looking for a short king. So
yep. And make him feel better. Didn't he make some comment about how tall everybody is? And then somebody else said Orioles locker room looks like a football locker room. So yeah, I'm sure Alvarez might be pushing for some Peyton Neals in the clubhouse. Eels and Vasquez have the third base experience, so I think are going to get an opportunity. I'm going to save another name for later. I don't know if I see anybody else. Like the pitchers, you think maybe a guy squeezing the bullpen, but like a lot of the guys they brought in on minor league deals don't even have AAA experience. Andrew Mango's AAA time did not go well. Richard Gauch has never reached AAA. Jason Cabrera can throw 100 miles per hour, and he's done a good job of building his innings up the last couple of years. I think he missed like 2+ years, but I don't see him making it. You've got 32-year-old Giancarlos Enriquez, who also throws like 99, 100, but he's been pitching in semi-pro ball in other countries for the last few years. I think that's a tough climb. Eric Torres, maybe. I'll say Eric Torres probably has the best chance just because he's a lefty with a lot of experience. And I know most of it was, indie ball and Puerto Rican Winter League, but the numbers were unbelievable. We'll see when spring games start what he looks like against other competition, but I'll throw out Eric Torres as a slight chance if things go right.
He's definitely getting some early buzz around camp before even any games have been played. And I know Jeremiah Jackson is like the popular new pick to be that last bench role, but I think how they handled him at the end of last year speaks volumes to how confident they are in his infield defense. So I think, especially if Mayo's playing third, Blaze Alexander is playing second, at least until some guys get healthy. I think having Blaze be able to slide over to third base late in games, and then Peyton Neals, I think, is a better defender at second base, but it could go that way, though.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Bob on this question and combine my will non-roster invitee make the opening day roster and the later question about surprise players and go with Peyton Neals. And really more than anything this spring, I'm interested to see what the defense looks like. Because if Eels does make the opening day roster, I don't think it's going to be a long-term assignment in the majors. But if he can provide value off the bench for the first month as a defensive replacement, second base, or third base to help you get through this recovery period for Jackson Holliday, I think that's going to do wonders. And the other thing, too, is that with Blaze Alexander, we know his biggest limitation as a major league player is how he performs against right-handed pitching. So having a lefty in camp to showcase what he can do against righties is going to help. And with the Eels, if he can go out there and just play good defense, he'll have a good shot to make this team as a platoon option. Even if he's not going to stick on the roster for the whole year, I think there's still a role he can fill for the first month that could prove to be kind of valuable.
And speed. I think he had, I don't have his numbers pulled up in front of me, 40-something stolen bases after he signed with the Twins in 2024. And last year, I think it was 20-something, and the success rate was a lot worse, if I remember correctly. But he also missed the first, 2 months with a knee injury, so I think that was probably obviously still affecting him. So speed demon on the bases could be another factor as well for him.
Hey, speed kills.
That's a good point. I'm actually going to skip ahead here because the question that's next on our list I want to save for last. I'll go to this 6-man rotation to start the year. So, will we have 6 starters at the beginning of the season, or will it be a typical 5-man rotation? Nick, what are your thoughts?
I don't think so. I think a lot of the 6-man discussion is like pre-spring training optimism. Someone's going to have a bump or a bruise. Hopefully nothing too serious. I just don't see it. You also got like the early off day. I feel like there's a lot of off days early on in the year. I don't have this year's schedule put up in front of me, but Orioles, how many years have we done this where they hint at it, they say maybe we'll think about it? I don't think so.
I'm tempted to say yes, just because Eflin's already throwing live bullpens. It seems like he's on a normal pace. Chris Bassett is in the house. Dean Kramer to go along with Boz, Bradish, and Rogers. But I still think they'll figure out a way to keep it a 5-man rotation, maybe to cancel out the early season struggles that typically come with the Dean Kramer. Maybe you start him in the bullpen. As you said, there's more off days in April. You can spread things out more. Maybe he is like a bulk reliever in the beginning of the year, and maybe the 6-man rotation comes in May if everyone's still healthy and you want to spread out the innings a little bit more and he gets more comfortable. I don't know, but something will happen where it'll end up being a normal 5-man rotation.
Yeah, I agree. It's fun to think about a 6-man rotation. I wouldn't rule it out down the stretch. I've actually said that I'm in favor of exploring it earlier in the year, but you've always got that chance, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but you've always got that chance that a starter is going to get hurt early in camp. And to Nick's point, I just pulled up the Orioles schedule. They're off 3 out of 5 Thursdays in April. They're also off Monday, April 27th, and they have the usual Friday after opening day schedule as an off day. So barring any changes in the weather, you have over the first month 5 off days. So that's going to give them a good bit of runway to build some of these arms up. I think they go with a 5-man rotation initially. Go to the next question now, which is who is in the bullpen as camp breaks. Bob, what are your thoughts?
All right. So I guess I've already said Kramer's in the bullpen as camp breaks. I think obviously Ryan Helsley, the closer, Andrew Kittredge, setup man. I think Dietrich Enns and Rico Garcia are locks. I think those are really good finds late last season that will stick. I think Tyler Wells seems like, unless I haven't really seen much of him, but that doesn't mean much. If he's healthy, he's there. And then it becomes, I think there would be two spots left between, you got Keegan Aiken, he's out of options. Yunier Cano, he has options, but I think I saw a quote today from Albernez that he's nasty or something glowing about Cano, so hopefully he's in a great spot. I will say that Cano starts in AAA because he has an option. Keegan Aiken's in, and Chase McDermott gets the last bullpen slot.
Yeah, I got Helsley, Kittredge, Wells, Rico Garcia, Aiken, Inns. I'm putting Cano and McDermott in. Again, even if it's, I think it's to go back to the 6-man rotation thing. Zach Eflin, maybe you start him on the 15-day IL. He doesn't need a 60-day, but you start him on the 15-day. He's fine, everything's good, but you can open up that extra roster spot to begin with and figure it all out 2 weeks later.
That makes sense. And if that's the case, then Cano can start in the majors for me too.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the same bullpen that Nick had, except I'm going to swap out Yarmil Geraldo for Chase McDermott. Just figuring that if Eflin is only going to be on the IL for 15 days, Geraldo might not be a guy that they mind bringing up and sending down to Norfolk and putting him on that Norfolk shuttle, which obviously isn't great for him, but given how McDermott's season ended last year, even though we've heard a lot of very good things about his offseason, maybe they want him to have that consistent runway in AAA to build back up and get his confidence back so that what he's worked on over the offseason, the increased velo, sustains itself, and then he gets big league innings. But I think from the get-go, especially they believe it's going to be a short-term spot, it goes to Geraldo instead.
It's another good option. I just think something I just thought of, and his option will get used, but maybe you don't burn Chase's last option right away, and hope he can stick all year long, which might help out 2027 bullpen, but in all likelihood he's going to hit AAA at some point, so yeah, I could see that as well.
It's optimism that last year was just not good on or off the field, and like we talked about the other week, with everything he's done in this offseason to prepare, if the velo is what he says it is, and he's shoving it in spring, and they told him early on, hey, we're done with the starter thing, you are in the bullpen, this is your role, prepare for it, and he's good to go in camp, I hope he makes that decision, a very difficult decision.
What prospect impresses the most, even if we don't see it, and sets themselves up for a breakout season? Nick, I'll start with you on this one.
I will go with, looking at the list real quick with the NRIs I got invited. All right, I put an article up on Monday on our Substack about Nestor Herman, so I'll go Nestor Herman. I think a lot of fans who maybe don't follow prospects as closely probably aren't too familiar with him. Like, they see outlets putting out the Trey Gibson hype, the Esteban Mejia hype, Luis De Leon obviously with the Arizona Fall League stuff. I think for more like casual fans, they're going to see this guy throw in 95, 96 hopefully in spring games. I think he's going to get a lot more attention. Beat writers are all going to have their articles highlighting him. The Seattle, nobody knew who he was, his rise through the minors the last couple of years. He's going to start to get more attention. And I ended the article by saying this, and I've said this on the show before, that I feel like it was specifically back when Michael Frett was in the organization. Love you, Big Mike. That there's a lot of talk about, is it Trey Gibson and Michael Frett, and these are like two of the top pitching prospects in the system. But like, what if it's Nestor Herman, who just kind of shoots past all these guys and is the guy that establishes himself first in the majors? I don't think that's crazy that it's Herman that ends up kind of rising a little bit more quickly. So I'll say Herman.
I could see the answer to this question being any of the pitching prospects that were invited to camp, but I'm going to say Enrique Bradfield Jr. I'm going to be optimistic that he can make the dead horse beating debate more interesting. And I think, hopefully, I think we've seen already that his stance is not the Arizona Fall League stance that we saw in October. I think he's going to make some highlight reel plays. I think he's going to be flashy, exciting. He's going to get more games than he did last year, so more visible. And I think he's going to catch some attention.
I'm going to go with Creed Willems. It feels like every year there's a catcher that gets praised for their behind-the-scenes work. And I don't know that we'll see Willems in games a lot this spring necessarily, but the fact that he's in camp as a non-roster invitee, I think is going to do wonders for him. All it takes is one or two veteran starters, it could be a Zach Eflin or a Chris Bassett, or a member of the coaching staff, talking to media and talking about how good Creed Willems is working with these pitchers to start to get that hype train rolling a little bit. And this is what I'll say for Willems this year. Yeah, you want him to go out and you want him to have a big season. And I think that there is a possibility it's going to start in Double-A. But if he goes to Triple-A, and let's say has a 105 WRC plus, but we're hearing much better things about the defense, we're hearing much better things about the game calling, that's going to do a lot for his prospect stock, because now you've got an above average hitter with power from the left side who could possibly be a league average catcher. So Willems could set himself up to build that kind of hype this spring.
Orioles Social already hyping him up. I think they put out a video of him hitting a BP home run. But that actually reminded me, too, of another quote that I think came out. I think it was this morning. The other way. Not just Chris Bassett with helping out with Creed, and even Samuel Basayo. And we talked about that a little bit after the Chris Bassett signing episode. But like Pete Alonso, when Cade Povich was on the mound, Pete Alonso was out there kind of talking to Cade, and Povich had some quotes that were like, it was really nice to have Pete Alonso, a veteran like that, saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and helping him settle in and figuring out what he needs to do out there on the mound. So like that just reminded me of that quote this morning. So kind of going both ways. The whole the veterans that they're bringing in, and these veterans being very vocal guys, I think that's could be huge for any of these prospects that we're using as our answer here, and others that we're not even talking about that are going to be in big league spring camp for much of spring.
I agree. That's a good call.
And that's a good segue to this question, which is, will we be able to take anything away from the new coaching staff following spring training? Bob, what are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be hard to tell from our end, but I think we'll get positive reports, obviously. Even if they were doing a terrible job, I think you'd get those glowing reports in the first year of first spring training. But I'm really confident in Albernaz. I like him a lot. I think tighten up that defense. Look, last year, early on especially, a lot of unforced errors, a lot of sloppy play, base running defense. I think we'll be able to tell when we're not freaking out, complaining 2 or 3 times a game about what are they doing out there. It's subtle, but I think we'll be able to tell.
Yeah, of course it's spring training, so everybody's going to overanalyze everything, but I'm waiting till the regular season. He's a new manager. Let's wait till the pressure's turned up and see how he responds and see how this team responds. With spring, honestly, other than, like Bob said, the fundamentals, are we playing clean defense? Is this team aggressive on the bases? And if they are, but is it not, the uncontrolled wildness that we saw last year, the other year? Is this team, honestly, vibes? It's spring. I want to see the vibes. Like, is this team performing well but also having fun? And then I think that's going to be largely a Craig Albernaz effect on the clubhouse, and then hopefully that translates to regular season wins, because vibes don't win baseball games. But after what this team endured last year and early injuries and everything, it could help.
Yeah, the vibes are what's kind of needed right now, because there's going to be a lot of noise surrounding this coaching staff and surrounding Craig Albernaz over the next couple of months regardless, because it's either going to be the positives coming out of spring, or it's going to be Orioles social media exploding on the Sunday that they play the Twins in the opening series, when the lineup isn't exactly right and Craig Albernaz, for the first time in his managerial career, is accused of punting. So there's going to be a lot of noise regardless, but just keep the good vibes going through spring. That's really it for me. And before we get into these last two questions, Nick, I want to go back to you because Bob and I already answered this one, but are there any surprises for you this spring on who could make the roster out of the position player group?
My answer would be the same for the question. I think we moved to the end. Do we want to answer that one now, or do you want me to wait?
Let's move to the end, and
Okay.
I'll go to the second to last question here, which is opening day starter and starting lineup. Nick, and you'll start off with this one.
Opening day starter. I don't have a lineup, but I will say like a 1 through 9. But it's Adley, Alonso, Blaze, Gunnar, Mayo around the infield, Ward, Cowser, Beavers, Basayo at DH, because it's going to be most likely Joe Ryan unless he's traded or hurt. I don't know if the Twins have a lefty above like AA. I don't think they have a lefty that's going to be even in like spring camp for them. So it's going to be a righty they're facing on opening day. And my opening day starter, not because they're trying to limit innings or anything like that, but I think I'm going to go Trevor Rogers, because he not just as a reward for what he did last year, but because he earns it. And that's not even necessarily mean that he's going to have a better season than Kyle Bradish, but I'd honestly like to see Trevor Rogers get the opening day nod after everything he's been through the last couple of years and all the trade discussions. Give me Rogers.
I'm actually going to agree. I think Trevor Rogers is going to get the opening day nod, and I think it's going to come with an extension, 3 or 4 year extension announced like the day before opening day, and then he's out on the mound. I think a lot of excitement could come from that, and it sounds like he's trying to build up a tick or two where he's going to, it's spring, so hopes are high. Hope springs eternal, but he wants to sit around 94, 95 this year with the added sweeper, the stuff he showed last year. Yes, he was very fortunate. His expected stats were higher than his actual, but if he is going to tick up a mile per hour or two on the fastball, plus keep that sweeper and the command that he had last year, watch out. And I'll try to do a lineup, an actual lineup. It's impossible, but I'll say Taylor Ward leads off, Gunnar Henderson, then Pete Alonso. Yeah, this is impossible. Adley fourth, Cowser fifth. Who's left? Basayo 6, Beavers 7, Mayo 8, Alexander 9.
All right, so I'll make it a clean sweep on the opening day starter. I do think it will be Trevor Rogers. And then for the opening day lineup, I'll go the good vibes 1-2, or at least the old good vibes 1-2 of Gunnar and Adley, followed by Pete Alonso, then Taylor Ward, then Colton Cowser, Samuel Basayo, Kobe Mayo, and then Dylan Beavers and Blaze Alexander after that. And then let's go over to our final question. This is one we like to ask every year. Who is this year's Jake Fox Award winner? Now, for Orioles fans that may not remember, I think it was spring training of 2010 or 2011. Jake Fox had an incredible 3 or 4 week run, and at least as far as the Orioles were concerned, was never really heard from again. So every spring we try to identify that guy who's going to come in, put up big numbers in camp over 3 or 4 weeks, go to AAA, spend most of the year there, maybe only get a taste of big league time in Baltimore, and then move on after that. So, Bob, I think you're actually the originator of this question, so I want to start with you on this.
As my 2-year-old walks in my office at 10:30 at night, why don't we start with Nick?
I was going to go... my pick here, and it's also the possibility of an NRI making the team / surprise bat. I do not think this is going to happen. This is just in the spirit of the question at this point, having some fun with this, but also above a 0% chance of this happening. Weston Wilson. He's been taking infield at third base in spring. If he looks good in spring games, he has the hot bat. I think he's 31, 32 years old now, and he's gotten some run with the Phillies in the big leagues. He's going to hit some home runs, some nice, beautiful spring training home runs down in Florida. But he's shown good bat speed and he doesn't chase a ton as well. So when we get full StatCast data, if he's starting to hit some bombs and people are like, oh, that bat speed is actually really good. Oh, look at that chase rate. Oh, the strikeout rate, he's not striking out a ton this spring. And, if they don't sign Ramon Arias or they don't make a move or someone else doesn't step up for that other third base position or someone who can play third base to help step up in that role, it could be Weston Wilson. His data becomes a popular topic of conversation throughout the spring. But once the season starts, you're going to see probably what you saw in Philadelphia last year, which was a 650 OPS, a sub-200 average, and a strikeout rate approaching 30%. So
I like that pick. Okay, I'm good to go now. I'm going to have my pick be a Phoenix rising from the ashes. You're already seeing some of this redemption tour starting early before the games even start. He's hitting home runs in live batting practice. He's doing it all. Heston Kjerstad, welcome back to the Baltimore Orioles. Don't think it's going to be quite enough to break the opening day roster, but if he's healthy and good spirits and motivated, I think he's still the hitter and the prospect that dominated AAA a couple years ago. So give me Heston Kjerstad for the Jake Fox Award, and hopefully we do hear from him again after this spring.
I'm going to go with Big Christmas. Janeski Noel. I'm just very excited to see what this guy does in camp. And look, I don't think he's going to get much big league time at all this year, at least in Baltimore, but I think he could be a really solid middle-of-the-order bat for Norfolk that is going to prevent some of the nights that I felt like we saw last year where the offense would just go out, and if Dylan Beavers went 1 for 4 and Samuel Basallo went 1 for 4, the rest of the lineup didn't really contribute, and Noel could prevent that. But on top of all of that, I was at the game where he hit his first big league home run. It was at Camden Yards again off of Grayson Rodriguez. So I want everything to come full circle this year. And one of the handful of at-bats he gets in the majors with the Orioles is against the Angels, and he hits a home run off of Grayson Rodriguez.
Also, the only week of the season Grayson pitches.
We won't even know if any Angels are alive because they're not showing any of their spring training games. So Angels just continuing to angel out there on the West Coast. But I like the Big Christmas pick. I am excited to see him. I want to see those spring training home runs. Everyone's well aware of who he is. No one's expecting anything more. But I feel like for me with spring training, like Friday is going to be so much fun. I'm assuming Friday is televised. I haven't looked. Friday is going to be fun. The weekend will probably be fun. But by like Tuesday, Wednesday next week, I'm going to be done with spring training games. It will help to watch Big Christmas out there hitting like 450-foot bomb into the wind. Yeah,
it doesn't take very long for the appeal of the spring training games to be like, okay, can we get the season going now? Can we get these games to matter? But yeah, we'll cling to the prospect data as our reason for going on.
And with that does it for this week. So we will be back next week for one of our biggest episodes of the year, which is our preseason top 50 list. Be sure to check that out. But if you want access to it before then, or at least episode by episode, head over to patreon.com and sign up to become a member today. It's the $3, $5, or $10 levels. You'll have access not only to the top 50 countdown and every episode that we've done throughout that, plus the top 5 that we're about to go record now, but weekly updates from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly updates to the top 50 throughout the regular season. Head over to patreon.com now and sign up to become a paying member. If you want to wait for us next week, in the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Blue Sky. And if you follow us on Facebook, you should see info now about our live show with Connor Newcomb of Locked On Orioles scheduled for March 29th at Checker Spot Brewing. That will kick off at 12:30 p.m., right before the Orioles take on the Twins at 1:35 over at Camden Yards. And Checker Spot, a short walk from Camden Yards, so if you have tickets that day, be sure to stop by and see us ahead of time. If you don't have tickets, hang out after the show for some good beer and some good food, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to watch the game there. And on top of all of this, you can find us at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens and Zach Spedden, you've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.